Hello, Austin. I'd like to thank you for allowing us into your homes for this 24th episode of Season 2 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And today I will be discussing the subject of artistic creation. And in particular, we're going to get into the medium of painting as an expression of artistic creation. And so today, one thing I would like to bring up very briefly is today is the Mayan Day Blue Planetary Eagle, and some of the keynotes of that are having to do with mind and vision and things of that nature, so and creativity. And so those qualities very much tie into what we're going to be discussing and make also for a good quality day for having a show of this nature. And so again, to introduce my guest, a local artist that's going to be discussing his artistic inspiration and also showing some art in a bit here. And so Douett, I'd like to thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
For coming on. And if you wouldn't mind, just tell folks a little bit about your background and how you got started as an artist and some of your early inspiration to take that path of being an artist for a career.
I've been in law enforcement, and I was on vacation.
Where were you law enforcement? What city? Or what country?
Jamaica.
Ah, interesting.
No,
Okay.
so I was in Paris, and I saw the beautiful stained glass windows. And something about the luminosity of color struck home to my heart. And I felt I need to be creative. That's what I'm here to do, not to be a law officer.
It's a far difference between those two professions.
So I went back to the island, and I resigned from police work with the determination to return to Paris and to study art and to give my life to creativity for the sake of revealing light, the light that I was feeling
Okay.
from soul, you know.
Right. Okay. So you had a definite inner change that caused you to go this route, and it wasn't as if you were thinking, oh, some of these artists are really doing well for themselves or making a lot of money. Let me try to go this route for a career. It was more of a spiritual or an inner need to express.
An inner calling, yeah.
Right. That's very interesting. And so that being the case, explain a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about some of your experience early on as far as attending school. How did you determine which school you wanted to attend and going about finding a school and that sort of thing?
Yes, well, I thought about two different avenues, one in Germany and then France, but France won my heart.
I imagine so, yeah. As far as artistic, yeah, it'd be difficult to beat that. That's wonderful. And so there was an established school that you attended?
Yes, Beaux-Arts, École des Beaux-Arts.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you did bring with you a poem that you wrote a while back, and that's another aspect of your creative side that you wanted to share. So if we could go to the poem, we have a graphic, and if you wouldn't mind just reading your poem to start, and that would give some folks at home a bit of insight into you.
Yes, this poem is called The Rose. Write the words you feel, O sentient one. The flower of youth fades away. Appearances disappear.
Excuse us for this.
All things tangible pass, and sights change like waves on the ocean. Why, O sentient one, do you cling to that which passes? This is a way of attachment. Why does your heart cling to myriad forms that return to dust? Ask therefore for sight without eyes, to see the light within the form, loving the tangible, but clinging only to that which transcends it. So fix the gaze upon and listen to the invisible, that in seeing the unseen splendor of essence, you will never again be deceived. The life within the rose is more than the rose it shows you.
Wow, that's really a beautiful poem. And
Thank you.
what exactly, could you give us some insight into the inspiration for that poem?
Well, I have felt like life is passing. Everything that is tangible is so ephemeral. It's so,
Right.
it fades away. There
Right.
is no substance.
Right.
That for us, for a person to put any weight of value on anything that is so transient, it
Hmm.
seems so
So fleeting,
so fleeting,
temporary.
so vain, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes.
So to look for the deeper meaning of life
Mm.
beyond symbols, beyond forms, forms that rise and fall, and birth and death, and
Hmm.
the whole bit.
Hmm. And certainly within the rose, we can see many ideas of symbolism as well. One of the main ones is that the rose is a symbol in the West of the unfolding of consciousness, of the unfolding of the path of return to divinity based on the Western mystery tradition, the Western approach to divinity. And the rose is the symbol of that. And the unfolding, the blossoming from the bud to the unfolding the rose is a symbol of that. In the same sense that in the East, the lotus blossom is the very same symbol for following the so-called Eastern mystery tradition and all that that encompasses. And so we find through art and through the written word, the inspiration behind it. There is often a lot of symbolism. It's often pregnant with meaning, and uh, and so we can really look at that and get insight into both the creator of either the written word or the arts, or get some insight into what inspired them, what made them create this, and inspired them to create a certain thing. Um, I would like to discuss a little bit about the concept of artistic creation and how that's developed throughout time. If we go back to early times, allegedly, if you'll consider that we were once on Atlantis, on the continent of Atlantis, before it submerged underneath the ocean. And not everybody believes that that was the case, but nonetheless, if you would consider that as a hypothesis, that during that time, allegedly, according to those that have some insight and ability to recapture the life, what was going on at that time, early in man's history, we were still in a process of evolution in which we didn't have the five physical senses. We were still attached to spirit to such a degree that we were yet to have a need for our tangible five senses. We were still connected to spirit, and so that is where we had our focus, and our attention was still centered in the spiritual realms. And so we had a deep, profound connection with that aspect of ourselves. And again, we were very much connected with the concept of abstract pictures and things like that, rather than specific, detailed, seeing things in detail and seeing them with full clarity. Back then, supposedly, someone would more so sense a tree as opposed to seeing the details of the tree with the leaves and all the branches and the colors and all those things. We only developed those senses later on, and supposedly we didn't develop the sense of sight until the very last. That is it's the height of our senses, and it's the most refined of all the senses. And allegedly, we did not develop these until somewhat late, relatively speaking, in our evolutionary process of unfoldment. And so some individuals, for instance, like Dr. Rudolf Steiner, who is a founder of the Anthroposophical Society and is a spiritual scientist, he speaks of a time not that long ago, that even as recent as the Renaissance painting days, that allegedly they used no models, that they still had that visionary capacity intact to the point where, without having a model to reference to, they could just draw from a vision, a picture in their mind, in order to create onto a canvas or a sculpture and what have you. And so if it was that late in our time, certainly if we go back to the Greco-Roman days and the great art that was being created around that time, according to, again, Rudolf Steiner and certain individuals that maintain this contention, that we had the visionary capacity to the point intact then that we could maintain a vision, we could maintain in detail in our mind something and keep it prolonged in our consciousness and make use of it without having to look at something, go back to our work, look at something physical and tangible. Again, we still have that connection to the point where we would just envision, whether it was again, any of the great sculptures or the great paintings that we could think of throughout antiquity, that was supposedly the process that took place and that allowed that unfolding of inspiration to go from the thought to the picture in the mind to the actual expression on canvas, or chipping away at some block of marble to become to reveal what's hidden inside, to reveal the hidden, whether it's a man or whatever we're working on. That being the case, that's a very thought-provoking concept in my estimation. Um, and as we became more material, we descended gradually into a more material state, and we had to depend on these five senses. And so that's what we've worked through today, as opposed to depending on this visionary spiritual capacity. But in the future, we'll regain that according to esoteric science and the tradition that follows our evolutionary unfoldment. So we'll have an opportunity, allegedly in the future, to recapture that quality and make use of it once again for our benefit on a higher turn of the spiral, so-called.
Right.
And so that being the case, it's something to consider as well. Let's go ahead and go to another one of, this is one of your paintings here that we're going to
Yes.
be checking. And please explain, as much detail as you care to, what's going on with this vision that we're seeing here.
There's conflict on the earth, and there is a conflict between egos, and it could be on an individual basis between individuals, or it could be groups of people in the field of politics, in the field of religion, in the field of whatever, you know.
All controversial topics.
Yeah, there's collective and individual sense of myopia, of not seeing clearly who we truly are.
True. So
Thinking that we are our bodies and our forms, rather than the energy that is invisible, that manifests the form and
Right.
surrounds the form and energizes the form.
Well, speak a bit, if you will, about the two figures at the bottom, and they're holding weapons, it looks as if, and also
Yes.
they're hiding behind masks. So could you please get into some of the symbolism behind that?
Yes, the mask represents the limited view, the limited ego concept of who they are.
And perhaps
So
also
it's like-
illusion?
that's correct, the illusion of having to put up a front.
Right, that's a wonderful
A
term.
veneer.
That's, yes,
A
yes,
veneer.
okay, wonderful. And also the arms they're holding as well, being defensive or,
Yes,
or
that's
maybe
right.
perhaps offensive.
But above them are the souls,
Right, and they are connected, as we see,
connected, yes.
to these two individuals. And so the soul quality obviously is, if you look in the picture, it's far overwhelming compared to the physical conflict that's going on. We see the calmness and the serenity of this soul capacity that's connected to these two conflicting and fighting individuals.
Yes.
But that is the main portion of them we see. That's the overwhelming center of this painting, and that is, I think, what we should emphasize rather than the conflict. Certainly, all the physical plane conflict is related to a spiritual cause, and I always try to demonstrate in some way or another that quality, that what we find taking place on the physical plane, the effects on the physical plane are just manifestations that have their causes in a spiritual, they have a spiritual origin ultimately.
Right.
And so that's wonderful that this expresses that so beautifully. That's really nice. So let's see. And also, too, just the concept that energy follows thought.
Yes.
And that we create, again, according to whatever inspires us, that energy, that inspiration can turn itself into a painting or what have you, or any kind of creation. So please explain this. This looks to be a lotus blossom from what I can see.
It's really a water lily.
Water lily,
And
okay.
it's very much like the lotus.
Okay.
There's an unfolding
Yes.
and an opening up to the light.
Okay.
And it's a symbol or a metaphor of how individual people can open up to the interior light of who they truly are, their spiritual being. And in that embrace, in that awakening, that unfoldment, there is an illumination of their life, you know.
And it seems that there is a recurring theme through your paintings in which the inner qualities, we have the outer aspect of the flower itself, but we always see it tied to an inner essence, an inner quality that is characterized by light and is refined and diffused in relation to the tangible portion that we see. The flower is more solid and more real to us, but the light coming in and emanating from the flower itself, we see reflecting again by the refined quality, the spiritual nature, which spirit and soul is much more refined than our dense physical nature,
Oh, yes.
but certainly very connected to and very much parts of a whole that we all these things comprise us individually at different levels, but they all make us a sum total of who we are. But again, to capture that essence, that inner essence, I
Yeah.
think is very, very key. And so please continue and speak about this if you wouldn't mind, this next one.
This painting is called Inner Light, and the part of the human being that's above the
Mm-hmm.
water's edge or the water level,
Yes.
represents the five sensual consciousness.
Okay.
But underneath that is the subconscious
Mm-hmm.
and into the great collective unconscious.
Okay.
And all consciousness is one.
Right.
And that's our source. That
Yes.
light is our source.
Uh-huh.
And when we dip into the source,
Yes.
in the very depths of our being, then we become enlightened with that light. And there's a glow that you can see above the forehead of the woman.
Yes.
There is a glow,
Mm-hmm.
and that represents the afterglow of a person who has dipped into the light.
Hmm.
Then their whole life reflects that illumination
Mm.
if they allow themselves
Right.
so to be.
Right, and we see the very serene look on the countenance of the face
yeah, the
that's
serenity.
above the surface. But below, it's equally serene below, but the submerged aspect, the larger portion of the painting that we're concentrating on, the submerged portion, is again the unknown aspect, the hidden aspect of an individual.
Yeah.
And it's still, again, very much connected to the outer seeming portion. And we see also, too, the distortion. We don't see the quality underneath the submerged aspect so with such clarity. We see it somewhat abstract, you know, representing, again, the hidden, latent qualities inside an individual.
Yes.
And so the duality there is very apparent.
Well, what we're looking at right now is the feminine energy where a baby has come forth from the mother's womb. And the soul is now entering the baby's body.
Wow.
And this is what happens sometimes. The soul very often makes entry outside of the womb after birth. Maybe that's contrary to popular opinion, but sometimes it enters before before birth. And I think that may be a correct statement to make.
According to what I'm familiar with, the soul is outside of the physical body, the baby.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
hovering
Yeah.
close,
Yeah.
and it would attach itself more permanently by age 3 or 4, ultimately. Before age 7, certainly, but usually around age 3 or 4, that the soul tends to permanently attach itself to the growing little child. And as the hole at the top of the head closes, that symbolizes for us the coming in of the soul and the becoming permanent of the little baby as to them becoming a growing individual, and that sealing represents the locking in of the soul to that person, part of their growth experience for that incarnation.
Yes.
But this, okay, and this next one here is...
This one is what we call the transition known as death.
Okay.
When we drop the physical body, it's like dropping a dead leaf. And the soul makes its exit through a tunnel.
We hear that symbolism a lot, actually, the tunnel after death.
Right. At that end of that tunnel, they enter a higher dimension, higher frequency vibration.
Yes.
And they continue to live.
The consciousness continues in that state.
In a flow of becoming.
Yes.
And they're met by beautiful helpers on the other side. You know, like the people that you see, one is in green, looks like a doctor, and then there are other beings there that are helping to acclimate the soul to the new surroundings. And every color there has significance. Now, the gold is refinement and wisdom, and the white represents purity and wholeness. And there's that deep indigo blue representing the dedication to the highest ideal.
Yes.
And blue also stands for loyalty to one's highest ideal, loyalty and love. And then, of course, we see that there are other colors like yellow. Yellow is joy and expansion. And red is that beautiful, strong energy that is the power lift. And then the green is the balance and the beautiful balance on a vertical level between all creation, the, integration and balance and healing. And then there's I don't think there's any more when you talk about in those colors necessarily, but you can see that there's a river.
Yes.
And the river is the stream of consciousness
Okay.
that is always in the process of unfolding and flowing.
And I like the way that the individuals, the beings, the sentient beings, they're attending. They're leaning over and they're in a state of expectancy. It looks like they're attending and anticipating and welcoming, and they look very contemplative and receptive and very nurturing as well. They look like they're, very healing and all those good qualities.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. And this, we weren't able to get the entire picture, unfortunately, because the bulk of this picture, at the top, if you were to see, again, there's an aspect that represents soul or the spiritual, the inner aspect. But we do see the little boatman, the little lone boatman all by himself on this vast expanse. He's navigating along, and I really can relate to that sentiment sometimes of just getting caught up in the grandness of everything and feeling like a little speck within so much of the expanse of creation, and considering our little place and the grand expanse of things. But please give your inspiration on this, if you wouldn't mind.
You see, he is going from A to Z.
Okay.
And wherever he goes, he's always in the now moment. And he's always surrounded by the people who have passed before, known as the ancestors. Always surrounded by these beings, although he can't see them because they're vibrating at a higher rate of frequency. Like, like we can't see the angels or we can't see the devas because they're vibrating at too fast a rate. It's like a ceiling fan when it develops speed.
Yes.
You cannot see the blades.
Right, the individual blades become blurred. Yeah, that's a good analogy. I agree. So do you think that he is confident in a sense of knowing of these beings more so? Or do you think that he's, there's a bit of a larger view of it?
That gives a little bit more scope. You see, you can see an angel up there or a deva,
Yeah. That's not the best angle of the picture, unfortunately. but forgive us. This is access once again. But again, if you get an idea of the little guy, is just in a vast expanse, and just.
And he's never really alone.
Right. That's a good point. He's not really alone. It's depending on your degree of feeling alone. If you want to feel alone, you can feel that way in the midst of a bustling city. But in actuality, we really are never alone. And
we're never alone. We can feel lonely.
Yes.
But we're never alone.
True, and I think the sooner more people realize that, the more progress we can make as a race, really. Because so many people feel like they have to be around other people or be with someone specifically and have a life partner in many instances, and that prevents them from doing something they might otherwise do constructively if they feel that they are constantly searching for some other person to make them whole. Then that's unfortunate. They can get caught up in that thinking and lose themselves in that and lose sight of what they really focus on and create and help out with. And so, everyone at some level is touched by art. We find that regardless of education level, regardless of background, cultural background, economic background, that art tends to stir the imagination. And here's another wonderful picture. I really enjoy this considerably. This one really, I love the tree and I love the night skyline. It's a little bit of a touch of Van Gogh, maybe, in a sense, with the stars, maybe. I don't know what it is. But please explain this a bit. And
a man once came to me to ask me to do a portrait of this lady.
Yes.
And he said, I want it for her to be a surprise gift. I don't want her to know that she's having a portrait. So you hang out around her and psych her out. So I said, all right. So I engaged her in conversation, and in the process of listening to her talk, I got an image of certain symbols. I felt that she was like a tree, but was rooted in the earth. She was earthly, very earthly, and yet there's a part of her that was heavenly, and she embraced the blue of heaven, and yet she was still a part of the earth, of Mother Earth. But inside of her trunk, there was this crystal. And the crystal was a symbol of her ability to create an integration between heaven and earth. Rather than being so heavenly that she was no earthly good, by denying the earth, that has been the problem with religion.
Yes,
is
I would
that
agree.
we've become so uptight about being heavenly.
Right, or trying to concentrate on a heavenly reward. If you're just concentrating on your heavenly reward and you're not taking care of business here and now,
Right.
don't lose sight of what's going on right in front of you. I
And
agree.
also, it's also that she honors her sexuality too,
Ah,
and she integrates this
uh-huh.
earth of her sexuality, etc.,
Hmm.
with that heavenly inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
she might call her mother or her father.
Hmm.
And it's that integration that is shown in the crystal. It's the ability, the God-given ability that we have
Right.
to make that
And
bridge.
again,
Yeah, yeah.
emphasizing an inner quality, the hidden inner essence of us that is the key, that is the true kernel or the real living essence of each individual is that crystalline structure. Again,
That's
it's very
correct.
much emphasized,
Yeah.
very prominent in this painting. And I also love the angle looking up at the tree. Again, you feel somewhat humbled by the vast expanse of the branches and the starry sky that's very endless looking if you're looking up at the night sky,
Yeah.
that vast expanse. And again, realizing our place in the whole cosmos, I think, is somewhat humbling when we look at a piece of art like this.
Yes.
And this to me really, as I mentioned to you, I'm glad you had a chance to bring this one because this one, for some reason, really, I love trees, I guess, anyway, and this one really does tend to touch me in some way. I really gravitate towards this particular one, along with another one that you have that's a similar, we don't have a view of tonight, but it's a similar one of a tree where you're looking up at the starry skyline and what have you. I think it's a wonderful one as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is really wonderful. So again, thank you for bringing
I-
this one in
I
particular.
agree with your observation that the crystal represents the Christine light, interior light,
Mm-hmm.
that we can call the Christ, or we can
Right.
call it the Buddha nature.
Sure, sure, absolutely, absolutely. And this one, if you explain this one too, we're going to show a bit more of this in a second. We're going to pan up here as
That's-
we're speaking about this in a second, but this is the bottom portion, obviously. And
After Ground Zero happened in 9/11,
yes,
I had a vision, and in the vision I saw the destruction on the earth.
mm-hmm.
But out of that destruction, I saw plants growing,
Yes,
and they kept growing through the pollution.
mm-hmm.
And when they reached the beautiful part of the sky where it was beautifully blue,
Mm-hmm.
they opened their flowers.
Mm.
And they looked out and they saw all the other flowers around the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the strength of that beauty flowed down the stems back to the earth. Because coming from the earth, where the destruction was,
Mm-hmm.
there were the prayers that Gauguin very aptly put in his paintings. He said, "Who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going?" And it's like a search for light, a search for meaning,
Mm-hmm.
a cry for meaning,
Mm-hmm.
And these people faced with destruction, faced with the frightening aspect of all of that devastation,
Mm-hmm.
there was a cry coming out from deep within their souls, wanting to find out, why this? What's the meaning of this? How do I relate to what's going on? What's the meaning of my life? And there's a verse in Holy Writ, I think it's 1 Chronicles 7:14, says, "If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven and will heal their land."
Hmm.
So coming from the Torah, I think that's from the Torah, that's a beautiful promise, that for those who really seek, they will find.
Yes.
And if they
yes.
knock, it shall be open to them. And if they, what is it? How's it go again?
Oh, ask,
Ask, they shall.
seek, knock.
Right.
A-S-K. And there's the
Ask,
three.
right.
It makes the word ask with the A-S-K.
Yeah,
Ask,
yeah.
seek, knock.
Yeah.
All those three qualities, definitely. But also, too, the wonderful analogy, again, of all the destruction seemingly as a result of something like 9/11 and so much misery and everything that came out of that. At the same time, it brought forth such a well of hope and outpouring of sympathy and expression of love, really, from the whole world for one single event, that hadn't taken place probably since World War II, as far as collectively the whole globe concentrating on one area and and considering that event. Again, sizing up their lives. I think everybody, kind of like probably when people were alive during the Kennedy assassination, they kind of stopped and took a deep breath and said, what is the whole meaning of everything? And I wasn't around at that time, but certainly for 9/11 and other events too that took place, they just are a cause for pause for you to step back for a second and assess your own life and assess your life in relation to everyone else and again, what's the purpose of all this? Why is this destruction being allowed to happen? And but then again, seeing the seeds of upliftment, that are born out of such a tragedy. Always through tragedy, we have opportunity for further unfoldment. We have to have these kind of events take place for us to learn and grow through this pain and this transition. And so certainly these events, as unfortunate and tragic as they may be, they still provide a learning experience for us.
Right.
And so if we can take the best from these bad events and make a positive out of them, then that's certainly my hope. And I think 9/11 was a pretty good estimation, in my estimation, is a pretty good example of people coming together again globally to one location, and their hearts and prayers and thoughts going out to the families and the whole the country really as a result of that disaster taking place.
Do you think it was a wake-up call?
Yes, on a large scale, I think so. I think there were a lot of precursors leading up to that, and we can look back to, 87 was a so-called harmonic convergence, and that allowed for certain interplay of energies and further unfoldment of evolution, and then on through that, then we go past the millennium mark, and shortly afterwards we find something like this unfolding, and so certainly, yes, I do think of it as a benchmark in human consciousness as far as
I like the way you put it.
Okay, but as far as, showing, again, a point, a very vivid point for everyone to stop and see that would allow for us to hopefully, again, size ourselves up, check ourselves and see which way do we want to head collectively as a race. Do we want to live the way of terror and have a perpetual war on terror, always, 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 a generational, nonstop war on terror, or do we want to have some goodwill, some cooperation, some coming together on common ground and some mutual understanding? Hopefully that is going to come out of this one way or another.
Right.
But I guess we're going to try to grab some calls already and see if we can have anybody that would care to ask you any questions about either your art and different aspects of, again, maybe what's inspired you along your journey to create in this respect. And I know when we spoke the other day, when we were preparing to get some things together for the show, we were talking about artistic creation and artistic expression and, how so many people are moved by various kinds of art. And we started talking about music and other things like that. And it's like, sheesh, we really would have a difficult time trying to incorporate speaking about music and really, in a broad sense, discussing all the different artistic endeavors. Because even in the sense of the craftsman that's making the gallows to hang someone, he's still going to take some sense of pride in his creation. Even in creating a tool of destruction, it's still a creation. He has to still go through the same process as the painter or the sculptor to envision, exactly what he's going to do to derive this contraption, even though it is a tool for death, And it's still, again, I'm sure the craftsman is still taking some pride in that work. Or just like the maker of a firearm, an old antique gun that's got fine carvings in the handle, and it's constructed, handcrafted or something along those lines, what have you, that we can look at as a piece of art, but very equally, it could conversely be used as a tool of destruction. It just kind of relates to perception as to how you want to look at it. And again, that everybody in some way creates, is artistic in whatever they may do, whatever your career is or whatever your hobbies are, or just when you speak to somebody, when you create with language, with words, when you try to get an idea across to somebody, that's an idea of, or another example of creative expression as well. And so everyone creates at some level. It's just a matter of, do we consciously sit down in front of a canvas and paint a picture that's inspired us, or, write something, what is it that, what kind of expression, what kind of action is going to come as a result of whatever inspires us. Certain people are going to take it to different levels and bring in inspiration, make of it what they will. And so it's interesting for me to look at different people and kind of gauge and see, their creative expression and what's important to them in that respect. But
You know what I find really works for me?
what's that?
Is before starting a painting,
Mm-hmm.
I get into a state of consciousness where I listen
Mm-hmm.
and go into my deep self, and I breathe through the crown chakra,
Mm-hmm.
and I breathe into the heart chakra, and then I ask that breath be conveyed into the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like giving Reiki energy to the canvas
Mm-hmm.
or Reiki energy to the paper
Mm-hmm.
through the breath.
Mm-hmm.
There is a conveyance
Mm-hmm.
because you call it forth. You
Yes.
see it so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an act of faith, I guess.
Yes.
Although I can't see clairvoyantly what's, all the intricacies of that energy, nonetheless, that's inspiration. And what I find is that the painting becomes a reflector of that
Mm-hmm.
energy
Mm-hmm.
and reflects back to the viewer, just like you have a recording of music that's inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
In that music is like crystallized energy
Mm-hmm.
that can be played over and over and over again from a tape.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is with a painting.
Mm-hmm.
The colors become crystallized energy
Mm-hmm.
because of the consciousness
Yes.
that went into them.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's very true. And so, as successfully as you're able to recreate faithfully on canvas, your vision is going to, carry over into the vividness and the quality, as you say, the livingness that's going into that canvas, and how that's going to express itself and convey itself to the viewer as the person that's viewing that is looking at it and taking it in and seeing it, and everything that's welling up in their consciousness and what's stirring them and their emotions and their thinking and their hearts. So as we can faithfully recreate these visions, and that basically is also the same concept as magic. Is based in this physicists say energy follows thought. When we think of something in our minds, a seed thought that we want to carry out and activate and make into some expression, hopefully of a service to humanity, that's the same concept. And that's something that I hope is that more people become familiar with the science of using impression to create actively. And the more faithfully we take in the impression, the truer the impression is to spirit and soul, the more faithfully we can recreate it, and our vision will reflect more accurately the livingness again of spirit. And that, to me, I think is very important for the future. So let's go ahead and grab a few calls and see what's going on. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, caller, go ahead.
Hi there. What? Boy, that show there took a negative turn there for a little while, and I just wanted everybody to take a deep breath there for a little bit and take a step back and let's lighten the mood a little bit, and everybody go ahead and say it to yourself and think about this and say, "Fight back with your knife!"
Did I tell you that we'd be getting a call from a certain individual today? Remember that? Yeah. Thank you, buddy, for chiming in this evening. I told Douett there was a good chance we'd be getting a call from a certain individual, and sure as shooting, it sure did fulfill itself. So imagine that. And I'm not even all that psychic today. So let's go ahead and grab another call and see what's going on with the viewing public today. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Corey.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Greetings. Great show.
Thanks.
It's the first time I've actually been on the phone and gotten, this is interesting, I'm talking to my TV. And this is interesting. Anyway, this is a great topic, and my friend Kirsten and I were watching the show, and it's
hey,
a
thank
great...
you for the lovely email, by the way, Kirsten. I really appreciate that. I'm going to get you back and email you a return response very soon in the next couple of days, but that was a lovely email. Thank you so much. But
Well,
sorry, continue.
Oh, well, yeah, we appreciate everything that is brought on in the shows, and the images that were being shown, something that was ringing in me was the picture of the woman's head and then the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I have this vision that I've shared with a lot of friends. I remember a time before I guess you'd say before I was born, and I remember being in water or being in space, and a lot of those images, I guess, remind me of these subconscious feelings that I have, and anyway, I was just, I guess you could say, harmonizing with that. That was something that I guess that I linked up there with the paintings. But also how your guest was mentioning taking in, allowing in the energy from the top chakra and breathing that onto the canvas. Yeah, it was interesting. My friend and I went to go visit, not visit, but we attended a concert, a Tori Amos concert, the other week, and we noticed that she kept swiping that upper chakra above her head to, I guess, clear the space and open that up to let the divine energy out and to flow that out to the audience.
And I think she's one of the artists too, or one of the performers that really does connect with her audience. I've had an opportunity to see her perform live as well a number of years ago on the West Coast, and yes, she very much, I feel there's a vibe, a rapport there, and I can see her having, a definite energy exchange and really that being activated in that sense. That's a good point you bring up, Mike.
Yeah, and so I thought that was real interesting too, how, a painter would do the same thing, or a poet, a writer, just the artistic process and opening, oneself to the divine light and channeling it through ourselves. And I think it's great what this show has done for me is definitely inspired me to find ways to tune into that divine source, and so thank you.
Hey, thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate that. Also, too, it's really appropriate that you call because you yourself are a very creative person. You're a musician, a drummer, in a relatively successful band here in Austin. And I guess you're off the air. But hey, Mike, thanks for calling. Again, you're a very creative person yourself, and so for you to call and be able to, see on the same level with another creative person, I think that's very appropriate. And thank you again for what you're doing. You in the same sense through your music are also providing, a lot of energy, positive energy for the community here, and uplifting a lot of individuals, I feel also. So I'd like to thank you guys for all that you're doing as well. Douett, is there anything you care to comment on quickly before we take any other calls?
Oh, well, I do thank him for those comments.
Yes.
Very, very, very nice.
Okay, let's go ahead and see about some other calls in quickly and see what's going on today. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I was speaking of the creative mindset that the last caller was talking about, how I just feel I have a connection with people. And I feel as if it is not because I can't realize what they're exactly talking about, but I feel I get to this euphoric stage through drugs.
Through drugs, huh? Well, everybody's...
No.
Beg pardon? Well, go ahead and let this guy go. Everybody's going to find their own way to, creative inspiration and expression. When it comes to things of that nature, certainly moderation is the key in any kind of approach as far as that goes. Some people will find that they have some kind of enhanced ability if they take a substance, others not so much, and I would say that's up to each individual's discretion, but everything in moderation is the key in most cases, is my belief on those sorts of things. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, D, what's going on?
Not too much,
Hey,
yourself?
I got a question. Is the esoteric science, is that more of a philosophy, or is it a way of life?
It's philosophy, religion, and science. It's kind of like three sides of one coin, and you can't really pick apart philosophy from religion or from science. They all play a part if you look at the inner qualities of philosophy, religion, and science.
Okay.
They all tie together.
And then here's my last question.
Sure.
Can you explain the dynamics of karma? The
Karma?
Karma, yeah, karma. Because
Okay, briefly,
right now,
that is the law of cause and effect.
right.
And so basically every action has an equal action.
Oh.
And if we do something towards someone, whether it's positive or negative, that has repercussions.
Hey,
and these things have a way of coming back to us. And that's allows us to have multiple, or causes us to have multiple births, and reincarnation ties into that. And you have to,
right.
you can't divorce rebirth and reincarnation from karma.
Okay.
Those two are two tenets of the same philosophy. And so karma causes us to be reborn. And we also have what's called dharma, which is our life's work or obligation. And as we find our way into incarnation, we have to work out our obligation and try to pay off our debts or our karma from our previous sins or transgressions, however you want to term it, and so that we can free ourselves of our bonds and our ties to the earth life. And then once we do that, the soul itself is somewhat diminished in the sense that we don't have the desire to come to the earth life anymore. We've paid our debts. We don't have any more physical plane desires for any of the material things of the planet.
Okay.
And so we free ourselves from that bond to this material plane, and we no longer have to go out, as they say.
And then last one real quick, then I'll let you go. Now, how is America playing in all this karmic role right now? Because right now, America has done a lot of negative things to especially, the African race and the Indians. Now, will that karma come back on America? Because I feel that it's coming back right now.
Okay, look at it this way. Everybody that's gathered now in America has had most individuals have had some previous working out of karma from a previous age. A lot of people from the continent of Atlantis, when we really, really went away from the divine law in a real way.
Hold up, you said Atlantis now.
Atlantis, yes.
Now, is there any proof that actually...
It's going to depend on who you talk to and also your own intuitive feelings on it. Plato talks about it in some of his writings, and there are other indications. Also, right now, there's a city that they found off the coast of Cuba, on the floor of the water there, that they're finding pyramids and they're finding a lot of stuff. National Geographic was down there, and I've heard some different things about it on some various different talk shows and what have you. And that, I think, will come out more so in the future as well. That, where did this great civilization with these pyramids and what have you that's submerged on the floor of the ocean, where did it come from? What is it a part of? And also, too, some contemporary or mainstream history and what have you, they don't want us to know about Atlantis because they don't want us to know how we truly are, the capacities and the power that we have inside of us, and how great we are and how great we can be if we really concentrate and get past the stupid distractions. America, as far as our role in karma, what we got coming down the pike, we have to demonstrate group love and group expression, and all of these individual groups that have had things happen against them, whether it's American Indians, the black folks that were brought over here against their will. There are always groups that try to take advantage of other groups. And you can look to the tribes in Africa right now, or you can look to Ireland to see groups of the same race taking advantage of each other, or the same ethnicity. And so here as Americans, we have to get past all these individual things and come together collectively as one people of various backgrounds and look together with a shared vision. If we can do that successfully with love and understanding, we can accomplish much, and we can change the whole world. The pattern that was started through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is a divine pattern that if we can express it together, we can do so much as a shining light of example for the rest of the world as far as freedom and right human relations between individuals. And again, a group consciousness, a group thinking. It really is up to us as to how much we want to look past the little minor differences, and even things, unfortunately, like reparations for slaves. Certainly, wrong was done, but like my people didn't get here till after the slave days were over. So, I mean, am I really liable to pay for some of that stuff? Picking at those kind of things can cause division.
But when you hear black people talk about reparations, that comes from hundreds of years of damage to our psyche, damage to our physical,
but
and
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
And I really don't expect you, to pay me no money. It comes from forced labor, and that's why I brought the question up on the karma, because all of this stuff that America as a whole has done to people, it's going to have to come back, because Jesus said you reap what you sow.
Absolutely,
and
it will.
That's the law of karma right there. So, and one thing that you did say, people who have the right mind need to come together. you're right about that, but hey, man, hey, I'll call you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
peace.
your comments. You had a lot of wisdom and insight, and I thank you very
All
much.
right.
Have a nice evening. We don't have a lot of time left. There's one thing I want to get into briefly. As I was watching Common Sense last night with George Humphrey, and there was an individual that came on, and his name was Mr. Chapman. I believe his name was Greg Chapman, if I'm not mistaken. And this individual is carrying on a hunger strike right now. He is trying to, with the IRS, he's trying to get them to just show him, very simply, show me the law that demonstrates, and where does it say that I'm liable to pay into the IRS income tax system, and just show me the law. That's all he's asking, and he's going on a hunger strike right now, and he's spending time out in front of the IRS building here locally, and he's only taking in water, and that's all. He's not taking in any food whatsoever, and he's lost a considerable amount of weight. And I really was touched by this individual's his motivation to take on this big beast, the IRS, and how much of a daunting task that is. And so really, if I could just ask, if I could ask you to indulge me, and if I can impose upon some of the viewers out there to please help me out with just sending our light and love to this individual. And please, if you'll consider the water that he does take into his body, if we will consider that water being full of life, excuse me, and being as nourishing and nurturing for the sustaining of this individual as can be possible. And if we can just ask that we can if I can ask that you will send your light and love to this individual and send him your thoughts and prayers, because he's going to continue this hunger strike. He's of the firm mind and conviction that he's going to do this until he dies. If he passes away right there in front of the IRS building, I mean, he's already committed himself to this task. And so that being the case, we'll please consider this individual, and again, offer our prayers and thoughts to this guy, and keep him in our thoughts and prayers for the upcoming weeks, because he's going through a lot. He's suffering and sacrificing a lot for an ideal. Not many of us would be willing to do that. And so please, we'll consider again, sending him our light and love, and nurturing and nourishing him through the water. The only thing that he's taking in as sustenance is just water. So if we can ask that that be made to the most optimum nutritional value for his body, that sustain him as much as possible in this trying time, and thank him for his endeavor. So again, thank you for helping me to keep that guy in mind. Also reminding folks that we will be having the metaphysical and philosophical meeting. It's going to be on the third Wednesday of this month at Opal Divines, usually in the upstairs portion. It's completely casual, completely free, and that's going to be May 21st, again, the third Wednesday of the month, that we'll have the metaphysical philosophical meeting. And let's see here. Let me go ahead and grab a couple more calls and see what's going on today. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Go ahead.
Well, I haven't seen you have a live show in a while. Sorry, I'm changing phones. Haven't seen you have a live show in a while, but I just want to respond to the last caller. It's nothing major. Just I heard him refer to the law of karma and these things, and you reap what you sow and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've done considerable research on karma and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
To the viewers out there who don't understand what karma is, okay, karma has more to do with transmigratory souls, okay? So it has to do not necessarily what you'll receive in this life. It has more to do with what you will receive in a life that you can't control. You don't know what you'll be in the next cycle, yada yada yada. I mean, all this. I think a lot of times, and maybe I'm getting off of the subject of what you were talking about tonight. I think that you guys were talking about artistic
That's fine. Please continue.
creativity. But one of the things that the viewers should know is that you should not confuse the idea of reaping what you sow with karma, because it's not necessarily the same thing. Because when you say you reap what you sow, you're talking about within this lifetime. Karma specifically deals with the transmigration of souls, which in and of itself is a debatable issue, but that's not the point. The point is that those are two separate entities. So when you begin to talk about you reap what you sow, well, you often reap what you sow very soon after you sow. something. So,
right.
for
That's
instance,
that's a good point. I'm going to have to let you go, so I don't have much time left, but thanks for taking the time to call.
Thanks.
The one thing, though, like you're saying, that is a good valid point, that we may get it come up as quickly, or it may be many lifetimes. As you say, there's a thread that interlinks the different lives, like like pearls on a necklace, and that each pearl would represent a single life on a strand of continuous consciousness, and that, yes, what we taint in one lifetime may not show itself as far as a payback until a couple of lifetimes later. It's up to how things pan out. Circumstances have to play out on the physical plane to allow us to pay back the karma. If we don't have the right situation, we have to wait till it stays in storage until later when we can actually pay it off. And that's a good point to bring up as well. So yes, reaping what we sow is kind of relative as far as the actual time that it would play out. We don't have a whole lot of time left, maybe about 3 minutes, looks like, as we're winding down. I would like to remind folks to take the opportunity, if you would, to check out Jeff Contreras. He's live every Tuesday at 10 on Channel 10 with his show, Therefore I Am, co-host of the metaphysical and philosophical meetings that we host on a monthly basis. And Douett, if there's any other final comments you care to add in the last minute or so of the show, just to mention. Also, your website, www.douett.com, is something people might want to consider checking into.
Yeah, actually, it's www.arthurdouett.com.
I'm sorry, that's right. Arthur
The
Douett.
A-R-T-H-U-R is how you spell the Arthur.
Okay, we've got it there at the bottom, so hopefully people can see that. And it's correct on the on our graphic.
I hope you come by and visit me on the web and see the paintings you couldn't get to see today.
Yeah, that's good. You've got quite a bit of stuff up there, huh?
Yeah.
And also, too, in the future, you might consider hosting some workshops and to allow people, one in particular. Are you going to try to show them how to paint, or what are you going to try to hope to do with your workshops?
Yeah, creativity really is what I am.
Just drawing that out in however way.
Right. It's giving them principles to work with and facilitating that flow of creativity among individuals. Mm-hmm. So we are planning some workshops in the Austin area.
Okay, wonderful. And also, you do tend to travel from time to time with your art as well, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
That's good. That's good that you're able to have the ability to share it outside of this area. I mean, the internet's wonderful these days, but actually going and taking these, from your portfolio to show people, I mean, that really has a way of captivating them, I feel. Taking it to the guy on the streets and showing him. That's wonderful. It's like the mobile gallery, I guess, in a way. So.
I want to thank you very much for having me on the air with you.
Yeah, this has been a good fun show. I've enjoyed it considerably myself, and I feel like, to show some pretty paintings and some inspirational work that you've done to kind of lighten things up a bit and kind of take a different perspective. Although we are very much emphasizing the inner qualities, we're the inner inspirations and the inner qualities that come from various sources and means that allow us to be creative in some way or another. So thank you very much also for coming on and sharing that with everyone. I'd like to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. He's done a really bang-up job today to really make things flow. I mean, we had a little bit of a glitch with a couple of things, and Arthur's shirt's been sparkling and glowing a little bit today. Douett's shirt, rather, has been glowing a little bit, but, these are the minor things that we deal with. Overall, it seems like we've done okay today, and we'll be back again live next Thursday on Channel 10 at 9 o'clock. So thanks, Austin. Appreciate it. Have a nice evening. Take care.